Hey everybody, the name is Mugsy Clemons, and in case you have never heard of the name, I am an intergalactic space fugitive, amongst other things. I'm also the oldest living creature in all of existence. I am the last of my kind because of the crimes I committed that caused me to be the most wanted criminal in 6 different galaxies. And this is my confession, but it's also the thing that caused the downfall of my own civilization. I've never been big on apologies, but I don't respect the man who doesn't own up to their own mistakes. So, though I can't sum it up in one story, I'm going to have to break it down into an anthology. The first story is about the first thing I did wrong, and I learned how to duplicate myself into perfect copies of me, and I thought that I was perfect. I had a lot of hubris back then. I was young and stupid, and I was overconfident. I had just learned how to shapeshift, which, cool thing about our species is we have all kinds of abilities. And each one of us has different abilities from the next, but the primary feature that we all have is we all have the ability to open portals with our mind. Usually it's at the end of a lifetime. Our kind doesn't typically die. Most of us have been around for trillions of what you would call lifetimes. And when we get to the end of our lifetime, or the end of our rope, when it's time to change scenery, we do this thing called sky jumping. And we open this. Basically, what it is a hyperdrive tunnel at the other end of a portal, and it's very difficult to pull off. You have to mix 2 different abilities. You have to take a secondary ability with another secondary ability, and you have to use them together at an accelerated speed that eventually equals up to hyperspace. And usually, when you get 50% of the way to hyperspace, because of the nature of evolution, because you get better and better at what you do, usually a third or a different ability pops out of nowhere. It usually happens by accident. For me, the first time that ever happened for me, I was shapeshifting, and I was getting really good at shapeshifting. It had gotten to the point to where I could mix my abilities together, and I was practicing the art of shapeshifting and sky moving, which is when you shapeshift, you can use your mind to pretty much shift your figure into whatever form you want. It usually rapidly changes with the succession of your thought patterns. But the trick is, it's called earth changing is the big thing. And when you get to that point, you're basically mixing your shapeshifting ability with your sky moving ability, and you're using your mind to change the environment around you at the rate that you shapeshift your body. And as you do that, in concession, you do it at an accelerated rate. When it gets to that 50% point, another ability pops out of the blue. For me, it was the art of multiplication, when you duplicate yourself into clones of yourself. And unfortunately for me, I was not mature enough to be ready for that. I was too arrogant. I was way overconfident. And because of that arrogant overconfidence, I was unable to see that my heart may or may not have been at the wrong place at the time. I just assumed that I was going to be best friends with my duplicates. And so I multiplied myself into armies, and I fucked up because I took it way too far, way too fast. My uncle taught me about that. My uncle Nathan, years ago, he had a same thing happen to him where his duplicates turned on him and it destroyed a whole planet. The trick is, if you do it right, you multiply yourself into about a couple hundred versions of you. Those versions of you, they go out, they shapeshift, but they also attain their own abilities and logic and knowledge and experiences. And right at the time of succession, before it gets too far, you bring them back. It takes a lot of work, but you harness your energy and you bring them back into you and collectively digest them. And you all unify and become one as one creature, and you get to experience all the experiences of all your duplicates, and you all become one creature, and you exponentially evolve into a better creature than what you were before. That's the key. That's the reason to do it. I fucked up. I just made armies of myself. I became best friends with an older version of myself who turned out to be a prick. At first, we went everywhere together. Him and I would open all sorts of weird portals to different worlds. We would run through them. One time we got stuck in a weird tunnel made out of metal shapes that kept changing form, and we could not get out. And we started to drink a little bit too much, and we got involved in political discussions. Too much politics, too much religion, and because of our age gap, turned out we didn't agree with each other, and we started to buck heads with each other. And the drinking didn't stop, and he wouldn't shut the fuck up. And I finally lost my temper with the son of a bitch. And when I realized he was never going to shut the fuck up, we got into a bloody fist fight, which resulted in me accidentally beating the poor son of a bitch to death. And I beat him right to fucking death. I mean, I felt bad. But as karma would have it, my doppelgangers, as I call them, my other clone, started doing the same thing, following my pattern, because as they are of me, they would do the same thing, created in my image. They began to kill each other, just like I'd killed my doppelganger. And once they were done killing each other, the survivors, the badasses, turned around in gangs and began to chase after me. And I fucking deserved it. That stretched on for trillions of lifetimes and centuries, and I finally took care of it recently, but they wiped out all of the rest of my species. And that was just one thing, and we're gonna end it there. That was also when I learned how to fly, because when I realized I was on the run, I also found out it was a crime. Killing your own doppelganger in certain areas of the multiverse is a serious crime, punishable by death. So I was not only on the run from my own doppelgangers, I was also being chased by the shadow agents. We'll talk more about that later. The shadow agents are basically like the feds, except for on more of a multi-galactic level. This is kind of a fuck you letter to those sons of bitches, because they never would have caught me if I wouldn't have turned myself in. But that was also the day I learned how to fly. I was being chased by both of them. No matter where I went, I traveled all over the place. I went to all sorts of places I didn't even know existed. No matter where I went, they always seemed to rear their ugly fucking heads. And finally, that's when I levitated off of the ground, and that's when a portal opened up in the sky, and I realized I had finally done it. I had achieved what I had set out to do. And I jumped in the mouth of the galaxy and entered the hyperspace tunnel. We'll talk more about that in the second story, but I'll tell you right now, that was the first and scariest, most thing I've ever been through in my life.